All right, so you know that crazy stuff that plays out behind your eyelids every night when you're asleep. Those, the bizarre, illogical, sometimes really creepy dreams.
Yeah.
What if those weren't just, random brain activity?
Mm-hmm.
What if all those strange sensations and impossible scenarios, like, suddenly feeling weightless or falling forever or meeting creatures that make no sense, what if those were, deliberately put there by someone else?
Whoa.
That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
The kind of wild and honestly pretty creepy question of whether our dreams could actually be some kind of government experiment.
It's a question that definitely grabs your attention right away. And it makes sense why, the thought that something as personal as our dreams, something that feels so internal could be messed with from the outside is unnerving.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to explore together in this deep dive.
Cool.
We'll look at this from all angles: the science of dreaming, some historical events, and the super fast-changing technology we have now, all to see if this idea that might seem far-fetched, at first actually holds up.
Yeah.
Our mission is to unpack this possibility that, government agencies might be involved in shaping or even watching the stories that play out in our dreams.
Amen.
It might seem like something out of science fiction, but as we'll see, that line between what we imagine and what's real can get really blurry sometimes.
So true.
Where should we start?
Well, to really get into this, we got to start with dreams themselves, right?
Makes sense.
Every night, you typically spend around 2 hours lost in these often really strange stories while you're asleep.
Yeah.
The main stage for all this is what's called REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement sleep. It's a phase where your brain activity really ramps up.
And even with all the research that's been done, we still don't know for sure why we dream.
Right. We've got theories, but there's no definitive answer yet.
So we've got all these ideas about what dreams are for, but no solid proof.
Exactly. One of the most popular theories is that dreams are super important for making memories stick, helping your brain process what happened during the day and figure out what's worth remembering.
So basically, our brains are doing a mental cleanup while we're asleep, sorting out the important stuff from the junk.
Pretty much another theory is all about emotions. It suggests that dreams are like a safe space to deal with anxieties and feelings we haven't worked through.
Interesting. So a way to process our emotions without freaking out in real life.
Exactly. And then there's a threat simulation theory, which proposes that dreams help us practice for dangerous situations, preparing us for potential real-world threats.
So that dream I had about messing up a big presentation at work could actually be my brain trying to help me out.
Yeah, essentially.
Wild.
And here's where things get even more interesting. The fact that science hasn't totally explained why we dream leaves a gap.
Okay.
An opening where other ideas can come in, even unconventional ones.
So the mystery of dreams makes it easier to think about other possibilities, like maybe something else is going on. And that makes this idea of outside influence on dreams all the more interesting to explore.
For sure. And this leads us to look at some past events, because this idea of governments messing with people's minds isn't completely out there.
Yeah, like the CIA's Project MKultra back in the 50s and 60s.
Right. A really important piece of the puzzle here.
Some pretty disturbing stuff.
Oh, yeah. We have declassified documents now that show MKultra was a real attempt by the CIA to research and develop techniques for mind control. This isn't just a theory. It's a part of history.
And the methods they used were, to put it lightly, ethically really messed up, like giving people LSD without their knowledge or consent.
Yeah.
Sensory deprivation experiments, psychological manipulation, all sorts of attempts to control people's thoughts, emotions, and behavior. It wasn't just weird experiments. They seriously damaged trust in the government and raised big questions about how far research should go, questions that are still relevant today as we think about the potential for messing with the mind.
Absolutely. The goal of MKultra was to be able to control minds for things like interrogation, creating agents they could control, and psychological warfare.
So mind control as a weapon, basically.
Yeah, they were looking for any way to understand and manipulate how people think.
I mean, if a government agency was willing to go that far to mess with the conscious mind, it makes you wonder if they would also thought about the subconscious world of sleep.
Yeah.
When we're asleep, we're way more vulnerable and maybe more open to suggestion.
Right.
So it's not crazy to think that if they were targeting the waking mind, they might have been interested in the sleeping mind too.
It's a logical connection to make, even though it's unsettling.
Totally. Now, fast forward to today. 2025 technology has changed so much.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing huge advancements in sleep science and brain technology that make this idea of manipulating dreams seem less like science fiction and more like something that could actually happen.
Absolutely. For example, there's DARPA's REMS project.
What's that?
It started in 2023, and it stands for Replay Enhancement for Memory Under Sleep. Their official goal isn't directly about changing what people dream about, but the project focuses on adjusting REM sleep.
That deep sleep when we dream the most.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
They want to use it to help soldiers deal with trauma and get better at remembering things.
So they were working on influencing what happens during REM sleep.
Exactly. They're looking at brain signals during sleep and trying to find ways to tweak sleep patterns.
Interesting.
Their focus right now is on memory and helping people process trauma. But this research means they're getting a much deeper understanding of how dreams work.
Right.
It's a step toward potentially being able to change what people dream about, even if that's not their goal right now. And it's important to remember that even research with good intentions can have unexpected consequences or be used for things other than what it was intended for.
It's like opening a door, you never know what might come through.
Right, and it's not just government-funded research either. Artificial intelligence is getting really good at understanding brainwaves. I remember reading about a study in 2022 where AI could figure out the general idea of what someone was dreaming about. Yeah, like if they were dreaming about a dog or a car.
Wow, so the AI was basically reading their dreams.
Not exactly what's happening is that the AI is learning to recognize patterns in brain activity that match up with what people say they were dreaming about.
Okay.
It's not reading minds like a book, but it's finding these complex brain signals that tell us something about what's going on in the dream.
So our thoughts, even in the weird world of dreams, aren't completely hidden anymore.
It seems that way.
And then there's neurotechnology like Neuralink, which is developing devices you can implant in your brain.
Yeah.
Their main focus now is on medical stuff, but the potential for getting even deeper access to and maybe even control over brain activity is definitely.
If we think about the big picture, all these advancements suggest that in the future, the line between what's going on in our minds and external technology is going to get blurrier and blurrier.
And it's not just happening in labs and government agencies. The biohacking movement is letting regular people experiment with this stuff too.
What do you mean?
There were articles in 2024 about people using apps, special headsets, even mild electric shocks to track and change their sleep, and some were even trying to trigger lucid dreaming.
What's lucid dreaming?
It's when you know you're dreaming and can sometimes even control what happens in the dream.
Oh, wow.
So this easier access to sleep and dream technology makes you wonder if people with limited resources can already do this. What could governments with way more resources and maybe secret motives be capable of?
It's a huge question.
It makes you think about the power dynamics at play, right?
Yeah, definitely. So let's dive into the potential applications here, the ways a government might use dream manipulation for good or for bad.
Okay, one possibility that's pretty fascinating, stealth training.
Stealth training.
Yeah, imagine being able to put mission scenarios, new skills, or even foreign languages directly into someone's mind while they sleep.
Whoa.
And if you could use lucid dreaming to practice in the dream world, that could give someone a huge advantage.
It's like those sci-fi ideas where knowledge could be downloaded straight into your brain, but in this case, it would happen without you even knowing or being able to control it.
Exactly. Another potential use is psychological testing. They could create nightmares or stressful dream situations to see how resilient someone is, how they cope with stress, and what their subconscious reactions are, all without the person ever realizing it's a test.
That's a scary thought, turning our personal nightmares into a psych evaluation.
Right. And then there's surveillance. If they could reliably monitor what people dream about, it would be like having a window into their deepest thought.
Yeah, their hidden beliefs, their secrets. It'd be the ultimate form of mind reading.
It really makes you think about how sacred our inner lives are.
Definitely. But this idea of influencing sleep isn't completely new, is it?
Yeah, there have been hints and experiments throughout history that kind of touch on this concept.
Back in the 1960s, researchers tried to influence dreams by messing with people's sleep.
Like how?
They'd play certain sounds or even whisper words to people while they were asleep to see if those things would show up in their dreams.
Interesting.
It wasn't the government doing it, but it showed that the sleeping mind isn't totally shut off from the outside world and that you can influence it in small ways.
So even though it wasn't a government thing, it showed that outside stuff can affect our dreams.
Exactly. It proved the concept, at least on a small scale, that the brain is still taking in information while we're asleep.
And then there are those rumors like the stories about the Soviet Union supposedly using hypnosis on sleeping soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
Try and make them better fighters or more resilient.
It's hard to know what to believe, though, right?
Totally. It's tough to find solid proof for these stories. They usually come from people's personal accounts or intelligence reports that are hard to verify. But those stories add to the idea that governments have at least thought about the potential of messing with the sleeping mind.
Right. And we shouldn't forget about those weird personal experiences, those dreams that just feel off like they're not really ours.
I've definitely had those.
Yeah, dreams with knowledge we don't remember learning or scenarios that seem to come out of nowhere. There was even a scientist in the 1970s who wrote about patients having dreams about things they supposedly had no prior knowledge of.
So dreams that seem to come from outside of us.
It's hard to study these things scientifically, but they could be like little hints that maybe our dream world isn't as closed off as we think.
Not proof of government involvement, but it definitely adds to the mystery.
Absolutely. The scariest part of all this, though, is that if our dreams can be manipulated, it means we could lose our inner space.
Our last bit of private.
Exactly. That's why this idea is so powerful. Our dreams feel like the one place that's truly ours, personal, often illogical, and completely separate from the outside world.
Yeah.
So the thought that this private mental space could be invaded or controlled makes us feel really uneasy and vulnerable, like even when we're most defenseless. Even inside our own minds, we might not be totally alone, and the stories playing out in our sleep could be influenced by someone else. That potential loss of that inner sanctuary is what makes this idea so disturbing, even if we don't have concrete proof that it's happened.
So we're back to that big question. Can our dreams be a government experiment?
Right.
What are your final thoughts after this deep dive?
We've looked at the mystery of why we dream, the documented history of governments trying to control minds like with M-Cultra, and the undeniable fact that technology is getting better and better at blurring the lines between our minds and machines.
And we talk about the possible applications, the good and bad ways dream manipulation could be used, and the historical hints and personal stories that suggest this idea has been around for a while. It's important to remember that as of right now, 2025, there is no public proof that governments are actually manipulating our dreams on a large scale. Mm-hmm. No smoking gun, no secret document that says Project Dream Control is happening.
True, but the fact that governments have tried to control minds before, and that technology is getting so advanced, makes this possibility, however unlikely it might seem right now, a pretty compelling and unnerving one.
Yeah, it leaves us with a lot to think about.
Definitely.
So as you're falling asleep tonight and those strange and often unexplainable dream worlds start to form, maybe pay a little closer attention, not with fear, but with a sense of curiosity. The next time you have a dream that's really vivid or unusually strange or just feels a little off, maybe take a minute to think about the questions we've talked about today.
Okay.
What if, sweet dreams?
You too.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of dreams and government conspiracies.
It was my pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another exploration of the strange and unknown. Until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and most importantly, keep dreaming.
I will.